Some of you might be wondering, how come I'm feeding my birds very well? How come they're accumulating fat? One of the reasons why they're accumulating fat is, yeah, good day and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about one of two major reasons why your production is not the way it should be. Now, there are several reasons why your birds are not laying at optimal pace, and I just want to focus on two that people do not pay attention to. The first one is management, and the second one is nutrition. By management, I mean how well your workers feed your birds, at what time of the day they feed the birds, and at what time, and the frequency with which each of those birds are fed. Now, there's a science to this thing, and I want you to pay attention to what I'm about to say. Each of those birds have a particular grammage of feed that they require for maintenance of their normal body requirements, and also to give you the eggs that you desire. Now, during the dry season, I want to tell you something you should pay attention to. During the dry season, each of those birds, they eat from between 105 grams per bed to 110 grams per bed. But in the rainy season, we increase their food to around 115 grams per bed to 120 grams per bed. Now, each of these calculations is done based on the type of feed you are feeding your flock. If you are buying commercially prepared feed from reputable companies or reputable um, brands, their metabolizable energy and their protein is as it should be. And so we use one bag to 217 birds instead of one bag to 200 birds. Some of you might be wondering, how come I'm feeding my birds very well? How come they're accumulating fat? One of the reasons why they're accumulating fat is because you did not take into account the number of birds you have in your flock, and you did not take into account the amount of feed each of these birds should be consuming. Now, for management, I told you we are feeding them are between 105 to 110 grams per bed during the dry season, and 115 to 120 grams per bed during the wet season. That's during rainfall periods. Now, why are we doing this? We are doing this to make sure that the dietary requirement in terms of the metabolizable energy by the birds and the crude protein content that they require is met. And when we do this, we're able to keep those birds laying, all year round for at least 1 year, 9 months to 2 years of active lay. Now, other than the managemental factors, I said I'm going to talk to you about the nutritional requirement. Now, there is a myth that each bag of feed is supposed to feed 200 birds, and I said I make bold to say that this is not entirely true. Why? Because you take into account, the bag, the feed you're buying, and the ration components in each of these bags of feed. Now, another thing you need to take into account is how long this feed has been produced. If you pay attention very well, you notice that there is a leaflet that comes with every bag of food you buy, and within this leaflet contains three important information that I don't want you to forget. The first one is the batch number, the second one is the manufacturing date, and the third one is the expiration date. Now, I want to advise you that when you want to purchase your feed, make sure that the feed you have given your birds are not exceeding at most 5 weeks of 5 weeks from the date of production to when these birds consume them. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because most of feed distributors that you buy from, they do not have good storage facilities where this feed should be kept away from moisture, well aerated, and in a dry environment. And so when the moisture content in where these feeds are kept is so high, it causes aflatoxin to build up. What do you mean by aflatoxin? These are toxins produced by some fungal agents. And for fungi, they do not actually need so much of a very conducive environment to thrive. They need little moisture, and just this environmental temperature is enough for them to thrive. How do I mean? If, for example, if you are from Nigeria and you have, food like eba or fufu that you didn't eat, overnight, that you could not finish overnight, and you forgot to wash the plate, within a day or two, when you come back the third day, you see something, a fungi with a lot of hyphae, growing out from it. Why is it so? You didn't, predispose them to any kind of condition. Just the fact that there's moisture around and you have, the ambient temperature that we have in Nigeria, it's enough to necessitate their growth. So those fungi hyphae you are seeing, same thing occurs in your bird's food. And when you don't put this into consideration, within 5 weeks, the fungal load or the aflatoxin load will be so high that it will be more than 20 parts per billion. within the feed, and this affects how much of the nutrient is available for your birds to utilize. Yes, that's why you notice that you can be feeding your birds, but they are not converting, they are losing weight, they are not giving you the eggs that they are supposed to give you, and they are dying. So I would advise, whenever you are buying feed, make sure you check the batch number, check the manufacturing date, check the expiring date. Most feed millers will tell you the feed can be used for up to 6 months. That's if you are sure of the storage conditions. But when the storage conditions are in question, make sure you don't use feeds that are beyond 5 weeks of their shelf life. I hope that is clear. So if you are able to put all of this into consideration, I'm sure that your birds will be able to lay all year round, and they will lay optimally at 90, between 85 to 90% during the whole of their life. So if you found this helpful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I remain your friend and progressive partner, Dr. Tom Well. See you on the next video.